Hello everyone and welcome to For the Craft. In this video you can see a diorama of a submarine launching a missile under the sea. The sponsor of the video is 3D Maker Pro, who were kind enough to send me the Lynx 3D scanner. I needed to make an iceberg capable of supporting the weight of the resin, so I first created an iceberg from clay, which I then scanned with my Lynx 3D scanner and printed with my 3D printer. I have been using the Lynx scanner for more than a month now, and I can say that it is a powerful and impressive piece of technology with great build quality and design. The software that comes with the Lynx 3D scanner is user-friendly, allowing you to easily edit and refine your scans. So I highly recommend the Lynx 3D scanner from 3D Maker Pro. Whether you are a professional designer or a hobbyist, this scanner will elevate your projects to the next level. And you can now get it with a 15% discount if you use the link and the code in the video's description. Once the iceberg was printed, I used my drill to create 3 holes at the bottom. To illuminate the exhaust gases of the rocket, I used this very thin battery-operated LED light, which I passed through the iceberg from the middle hole, and I glued 2 screws on the other holes that would support the iceberg even more and keep it stable on the wooden base. Then I mixed these acrylic materials to create the first layer of ice on the surface of the iceberg. At this stage I decided that it would be best to create the wooden base of my diorama before I proceeded any further. Once the diorama was firmly fixed on its wooden base, I used this acrylic material and spread the second layer of ice over the surface of the iceberg. Then I painted the iceberg with my airbrush. One of the challenges of this construction was how to cut the piece of the mold that would touch the iceberg properly so that I would not have any leaks. To achieve this, I used epoxy putty, which, when it dried, gave me the right outline and I was able to cut the plexiglass properly. Then I painted the submarine and used thin wire to create the trajectory of the rocket. Also, I didn't want a lot of air to be trapped inside the submarine, so I filled it with silicone. My plan was to pass the LED lights coming out of the iceberg through the submarine and through a hole I made on its deck, and then attach them on the wire all the way up to the rocket. The point where the cable came out of the iceberg and into the submarine was very sensitive and easy to cut, and unfortunately, as I was trying to glue the 2 pieces of the submarine together, the cable snapped. So I had to buy a new submarine and start over, but this time I would route the wires differently so they wouldn't cut again. This time I would put the cables inside the submarine first, then connect the 2 pieces of the submarine together and then run the wires through the iceberg to the bottom of the base and connect them with the battery pack and the on-off switch. So once I ran the wires through the submarine and glued the 2 pieces together, I started painting it with my airbrush. I also used black and white washes to highlight the details on the surface of the submarine. When the submarine was ready, I ran the cables through the iceberg and down to the base, and then sealed the hole on the iceberg with epoxy clay. I also painted the hole with the same color so that the changes I made would not be visible. Finally, I fixed the submarine on the mold with UV resin and also created the underwater launch of the rocket with cotton dipped in UV resin. When everything was in its place, it was time to build the rest of the mold around the submarine and the iceberg and proceed with the epoxy resin pouring. After 72 hours, the resin was hard enough and I could proceed to pour a thinner layer of epoxy resin so that I could place some ice blocks on the sea surface. In order to create the rocket engine exhaust fumes, I used an acrylic water texture gel and cotton. I also used the same acrylic water texture gel to create the waves on the sea surface. Then I started making the final details of this diorama. So I 3D printed some polar bears and placed them on the top of the iceberg and some on the ice blocks. Then slowly I started painting the water trail that the submarine leaves as it moves with white acrylic color and a thin brush. I also used a thin round rod of styrene to create the rocket and thin styrene small pieces to create its wings. Another detail I wanted to add on the diorama was some icicles. Therefore I used the acrylic water texture gel material and created some tiny icicles, which I then glued on the iceberg. At the final stages of this build, I connected the electrical wires with the on-off switch and the batteries. I painted the wooden base and varnished it, and my diorama was finished. So this is the diorama with the submarine launching a missile under the sea. I hope that you liked it. Write me in your comments below if you liked it or if you think that I could do something better. I always love to hear your comments. I would like to say a big thank you to all the supporters of my channel. You guys are all amazing. Many thanks to 3D Maker Pro for sponsoring this video, and don't forget to use the link and the code in the description to get a 15% discount on the Lynx 3D scanner. Thank you very much for watching, have a great day everyone, and see you again soon. Goodbye.